Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Fandom track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and today I'm going to be talking with Alice Jester. So as I get my background fixed, got to have your background fixed, you know. I'll be talking to Alice Jester from Winchester Family Business. Hello, Alice.
Hello.
So, Alice, you founded the Winchester Family Business website, and it is a huge and glorious site. Tell me about what led you to decide to take on such a massive and maybe slightly crazy undertaking.
Oh, well, I started off as a blogger for another site, Blog Critics, and I was doing that I started right around the writer's strike in season 3. Mm-hmm. And I was writing for Blog Critics, and you know, it was kind of fun. I liked it, but I was very limited in what I could do because it was just writing articles, and I wanted to do. I don't know. I just wanted to jump into my own creative endeavors. So, at the beginning of season 4, 2 days before season 4 was to premiere, I lost my job. They just abruptly let me go that day, no warning. So. Aside from, you know, and season 4 was so exciting at the time, so exciting. I'm just like, you know what? I'm an IT person. I'm unemployed. I love this show. Let's build a website. So I started off with some very, very basic tools. The very first website was just, it was blue and white. And it just said at the top, Winchester Family Business, and I just posted my articles there. But what surprised me is when I did that, people started coming and posting. And I'm like, really? Really? I was like, I just thought this was my own kind of personal blog here. So that's when, come the end of the year, my husband and I thought, okay, let's put some design in this and see if we can actually build something good. And it's through the years, it's gone through many iterations, many redesigns, but back then it was just I wanted to do polls on one side and articles, reviews in the center, and then somebody joined me as a writer. She just, one of the frequent commenters said, I want to write an article. It's like, okay, let's do it. And suddenly I'm just running the site, and it took off very quickly, very, very quickly. I think because I kind of gained my name during the writer's strike when everyone was really, really hurting for material at the time. I guess it was just perfect timing. So.
Now, let's back up and ask, how did you become a fan of Supernatural? Because you have to be a real super fan to run one of the biggest fandom sites for a show. How did you go down the Supernatural rabbit hole?
All right, I was just channel flipping. It was September. The fall TV seasons hadn't started yet. So I'm just channel flipping, and I came into the last 5 minutes of All Hell Breaks Loose Part 2. They were
wow.
Yeah, as they were airing it as a repeat the week before season 3 was supposed to start, and I'm just like, you know, it just took 5 minutes. That's all it took. And the conversation by the car, everything, it's just like, who are these guys? What is that beautiful car? Why have I never heard of this show before? Heck, I didn't even know what network I was on. The CW, never heard of it. So that's when, you know, you get online and you start exploring. I just found so many very dedicated fan sites and fandoms out there, particularly in LiveJournal, which I had dabbled with before with other shows. And Television Without Pity at the time. I was a huge Television Without Pity person. So, but again, for other fandoms. So I found their Supernatural page, and it's like, holy moly, these fans are energetic. We'll put
Mm.
very, very devoted.
I understand. I mean, I started watching it on Netflix halfway through season 11, and my only thought was, where have you been all my life? How did I not get into this? And I know I had little kids and all that, but yeah, I mean, it just took one episode and I was totally hooked.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, my husband and I, we love these type of shows and sit there. We were huge X-File fans, so to not know about the show was kind of strange for us, at the time. So
now, when you were writing blog posts, you found out that Eric Kripke was actually following you.
Yeah. I had heard from the publicist at Warner Brothers, Holly Alice, who I had just started keeping contact with in the beginning of season 4. She had mentioned, oh yeah, he reads your stuff all the time. I'm like, okay.
For those who don't recognize the name, Eric Kripke is the show founder and the initial showrunner for Supernatural. So he kind of put the whole thing in motion. Yeah,
but personally, I didn't get to interview him till season 5, and I did. The first interview with him was actually for the Variety 100th episode special edition. I was asked to do an article, and I came up with the idea of him breaking the fourth wall and things like the real Ghostbusters and the monster at the end of this book. And when I mentioned that to the Variety editor, and this is a little bit before Variety went through their current phase, before the traditional old school Hollywood publication. The editor got back to me and said, why would he do that? But he was fascinated. So I put in, it was just a thing that explained, how unique this was, this relationship between the fans and Eric Kripke, in that he was, in a sense, acknowledging them through these episodes. And it was just totally unheard of. It was crazy at the time. And
it's become a signature for the show. They've done so many that break that fourth wall. And they're kind of some of the iconic shows that the episodes that the show has done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I got to interview him briefly for that. It was a short article, so it's not like I can include all the sound bites, but I got to put that all on the site later. And it was just, it was a thrilling experience just to know. And then, I got to tell him thank you so much. And then he, in a sense, said thank you so much back to me when it was all over. And I was just like, this is just totally cool.
Well, but the truth is, if you put on a show and nobody knows to watch it, it doesn't stay around. And so there is an interdependence there with bloggers and reviewers that help shows stay on the air by letting people know that they exist and kind of feeding the fandom. Yeah.
Now, and that's what Warner Brothers did a great job from the word go, engaging fans online and kind of giving them something to be excited about. They also had the CW boards at the time. They're not there anymore, but that's where a lot of the fans would hang out, is on the website or on the forums. They are just obsessing about the show. And so that's kind of what fueled me to start this website, because I was a reviewer, but I really wanted to discuss the show. There was so much in the episodes. They were so fully loaded, so many themes, so many hidden things in there that you really didn't think about. And So it was started as a discussion site because I wanted a free place to go and discuss and just the episodes and not feel intimidated. Like television without pity was a little intimidating to go post there. So, it, fans were passionate, and it gave me a chance to control the conversation a little bit. But it was an all opinions are welcome. Everything is meant to be constructive, meant to be fun, and yeah, and it took off. It really took off because that's what people wanted to be part of.
So in the early days, you got a chance to interview Kripke. What was Fandom's relationship with the show writers and the cast in the early days?
Well, it was mutual admiration for sure, but this is before Twitter really took off. This is it's before Facebook even. I think MySpace was the big one, and so you couldn't exactly send a message to somebody online and say, hey, love the show, but you could go post in these forums like in Television Without Pity, and it was known that Eric Kripke would read it, that he would actually spend time on the boards, and not just him. Sarah Gamble was another big one too. Ben Edlund, he has that, I don't know, he sometimes read boards from what I understand, but he never went online, never posted, never did anything. So, but yeah, it was a chance for the writers to basically go and say, hey, they're actually digging this. Mm-hmm. and the writers did it first, and then eventually, the first actor to really engage with the fans was Misha Collins. He was the one that said, I've got to get in on this.
Why does it surprise me?
What's that?
Why does this not surprise me?
I think he was so floored and so fascinated by all of it. It was a social phenomenon unlike anything he'd ever seen before, and him being the intellectual he is, and the curious type, and the troublemaker. Yeah, he's just like, all right, let's see what happens if I actually get online and start talking to these fans. And the fans went wild. I mean, he got a huge following on that. They loved it, and that's kind of what sparked not just Jared and Jensen, but other shows started doing it too. And but that's when Twitter became a little more available. Misha was the first one to adopt Twitter from all the actors there. Come to think of it, probably all the writers too. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say, I don't know how much you've actually had a chance to interact with the actual cast over the years, but from those interactions, what are some of the most exciting or memorable things that have come up?
Oh my, there's so many. I've interacted with the cast a lot, a dozen or so times. The fun thing with me, since I was talking about Misha, I have a lot of stories about Misha, but the thing was, I met him. I was there at his very, very first con. It was in New Jersey. It was actually, it was the first New Jersey con. He was the headliner. Jim Beaver was also the headliner. And there was no Jared or Jensen there. And Misha came out on Sunday and saw this enthusiastic group of 400 of us sitting there. And he was just stunned. He didn't know what to think. He was just amazed by it all. He was very humble. He was very gracious. He was not a wisecracking guy that he did in the future cons, but he just started talking to fans. And this, as an actor, this whole notion of just sitting down and having conversations with fans, I think it just threw him for a loop. And they would tell him how much they loved Castiel and loved his scenes and wanted to know how he approached this scene and that scene, or the character in general. And he just didn't know what to think about it. He was he just really got into the experience. But the thing was, I met him that day, and I got to talk to him a lot because Jim Beaver was holding up the line. Like he always did, and Misha was behind him. So, a lot of fans had to sit there and wait and talk to him. So I got to talk to him a long time. And I told him my story of 2 days before I was unemployed. And Warner Brothers had sent me this promotional package it was the preview of Lazarus Rising and Are You There, God? It's Me, Dean Winchester. It came with a Bible and a bookmark and some other PR materials. And it was my first ever PR package. And it was sitting there on my doorstep after I left my employer with my things in a box, and just totally dejected. And I was so excited. I was like, I forgot totally for 3 days I was unemployed, just totally. So I told Misha that story, and he was amazed that I was opening up and telling him this story. So I had him sign that package, and it says, "To Alice, from one angel to another." It's still one of my prized possessions. So what it is so every Comic Con, every con that I went to, I would go up to Misha and say, "Hey, good to see you." And then, after a while, it's just like, do you know my name? And he would say, "Oh, yeah, sure." And then he wouldn't tell me what it was. Or there were times he'd ask the person behind me, "What's her name?" And we would do this every single time, dozens of times. It's like, "Hi, Misha." And he's like, "Hi, you." So the last Comic-Con, the one in 2019, so this is going to be it, the farewell, the final farewell. Misha sits down in front of us at the table for the video interview last time, and he's sitting there talking, and then he stops, and he looks at me, and he says, "Alice." I'm like, yes, finally. So that's my fond Misha story. Jared and Jensen, oh man, the first con was that I met them was the Chicago con. It was later that year after New Jersey, because those were in the fall at the time. So I'd say that was probably that probably close to season 5 actually. They're closer. Well, anyway, I went up to them, and that article. There's an article that got me started on all this. It was my exploration as to why no one had ever heard of this show. So it was called how I can't even remember the title of it now. How terrible! It was about all the challenges with the CW network, that they were not promoting their shows. They were expecting established crowds to come in, and the network did not have a good first year. It had a president of the network that didn't support the show, didn't promote the show, didn't do anything. So that's one reason why I couldn't, that's why I'd never heard of it. And so I did a lot of research. I put in reasons why fans were having trouble, and how fans are being engaged right now in grassroots efforts to promote the show, and just all the fan campaigns that we were doing at the time. And so I took a copy of that to ChicagoCon, and got in the autograph line, and after waiting a very long time, that was a very big con, and I put it in front of Jensen, and he just sits there, looks, and he says, "Oh, I've read this." I'm like, what? And he says, "Oh yeah, this was passed out to all of us. And I sat there and read it in my trailer." I'm like, so he signed it, and then he passed it on to Jared and said, "Hey, you remember this thing?" And Jared looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, I remember this." And I was floored because at the time, I didn't know anyone was reading any of it. A bunch of fans I knew because I had said, but I didn't know it had gone to that level. And then just throughout the years, you see them, and like at Comic-Con, and you get hugs from them, and just, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they may not always remember your name, but they always remember your face.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And I haven't been to nearly as many conventions as a lot of folks, but that was something that really struck me that I've seen, is that interaction between the cast and the fans. And like you said, they may not remember everybody's name, but they remember that they've talked to that person before, and sometimes they remember what they talked to them before. And that's so rare.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, because of Comic-Con, I started a side site there for a while, TV for the Rest of Us, the sister site to Winchester Family Business, where I wanted to try and do the same thing with other shows. So that exposed me at Comic-Con to a lot of other shows. I met actors from Smallville, from Arrow, from The Flash. Person of Interest was a huge one for us. The 100 was another big one. Just all these actors from all different places, and yeah, when you meet them, they're nice, they're great, they're normal people, but it's not quite the same thing as when you match these actors with the Supernatural fans. It's just something different about it.
Yeah, there's just tremendous energy there, and it's reciprocal. And I think that's one of the things that floored me, because I've been going to conventions for decades, and I've seen a lot of the stars from the various movies and TV shows. And like you said, they're professional, they're gracious, they're usually on their best behavior. But there isn't that reciprocity, that energy going back and forth. And that is something very, very special that we're lucky to have with the cast. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the most popular article the WFB, the Winchester Family Business, has ever posted?
The most popular one, probably the one that got the biggest buzz, was something that Night Sky had written. Mm-hmm. When very shortly after she discovered the show, and it was kind of it was a Dear Jared. It was the name of the letter, and it was just an homage to him and everything he brings into the show and the role. His wife Genevieve got hold of it, and she retweeted that, and then Jared got hold of it and said that he keeps it close and reads it when he needs a lift, and
wow.
Yeah, and it was huge for a very, very long time. It still does get those little spikes every now and then, but
well, and for few folks who may not have wandered out there yet and found WinchesterFamilyBusiness.com, can you tell us out some statistics here so people know about the size of what we're talking about? Because the site is huge and so full of terrific stuff.
Yeah, I mean, geez, we post articles daily. Well, just about almost daily, but that's something I started in the summer of season 4. was posting daily, and that was just when there were 2 of us, and we've been going ever since. And so that's that's probably 11, almost 12 years ago. So we started that. So if you compound that by 365 or something like that, but then there's also news articles, there's games, there's other pieces. We've probably got a good 25,000 to 30,000 pieces on the site of just, articles, just a lot of news articles. We have feature articles and news articles, what we call it, but so many
I love
pieces.
the site. I mean, you've got the episode review articles. You've got the like you were saying, the news articles, but they're not just about the main cast. You'll have a recap that's kind of anything about anybody who's been on the show, what they're doing now, what's going on with them, the news about everybody who's been involved with the show. You've got photo galleries. You've got the whole, you can go back through season by season and read not only the reviews, but some of the think pieces and articles about the show. So for someone like I was when I got involved halfway through season 11, and I'm just poking around and it comes up in my browser history. And I think I recognized the name because I had been live tweeting the show, and I was live tweeting with Night Sky, and that kind of led me
okay
website, which is how I got to know her. And I went out there, and I'd been on fan sites before, but I'd never been on a fan site like this. And you just dug and dug and dug, and there was more stuff and more stuff. And if you wanted to go back and go, there was something I missed in that episode, I know it meant something, but I didn't get it, you could go back and you could read the reviewers or the threads articles, which kind of trace those pieces that are going through multi-episode arcs or the whole series, and go, I get it. And it really helped to deepen the experience for me as a fan, because there was so much there. And that's without even really getting into the comments. Most of the times when I've been on the site, I haven't bothered to comment or even read the comments. I'm just, there's a big enough rabbit hole with just all the articles. If I went down the comments, I'd never get anything done, but it's just such a treasure trove.
Well, and you mentioned the comments. The thing is, we would have hundreds of comments per article. Sometimes they would go up to 1,000 in the early days, because that was before Twitter. But now more, people are more engaged in the social media parts of it. But my comments library, I can't believe how many times that thing exploded on me in terms of just trying to maintain it from a server perspective. But yeah, I have always been fortunate, though, from my very first writer, whose name was L2. It's funny, L2 came before L, who came at the same time. But I've always had really good writers. I've had a huge rotation of writers. I mean, they don't stay long. They stay probably a couple of seasons each, but they each provide fascinating viewpoints that you just never thought of before. And so you go back and you read even in the early days, and you get that point of view, and you think, I've just totally forgot about that, or I never saw it that way. And it helps.
So, I mean, we've touched on some things that certainly play into this, but what do you think makes the Winchester Family Business site different from some of the other fan sites that are out there?
We're more discussion oriented. Most fan sites like to post news, post links to this fan thing or that fan thing. And it's not that we don't do that, we do. And it's a good thing that I've had people come on board for doing that, because that was never my mission or focus when I started this. It was the discussion. So yeah, we have expanded in those realms, and it's worked very well for us. But yeah, it's just the heavy, I can't think of any other site that posts about 6 or 7 reviews an episode. We have a lot of reviewers. So
yeah, they're very different. I'll go out there, and this person will love it, this person was mad, this person it really didn't do anything for, but they all have different reasons for why, and you're going through going, well, can't fault you on that one. Okay, I'll give you that one. Didn't hit me that way, didn't bother me nearly as much apparently, but I can see where you're coming from. They're just very well reasoned, well written. And that was one of the other things that kind of brought me into Winchester Family Business as kind of a fandom safe space, was that it was, to the extent anything on the internet can be, very much of a wank-free zone. You didn't have the drama that you get on some of the other sites. And I'm a no drama mama. That does not attract me. So this was like, ooh, yes, we can have like discussions on this without this turning into throwing tomatoes at each other. Isn't this exciting? Yeah.
Well, we had a few periods, a few controversial episodes there where, we were throwing tomatoes at one another. But for the most part, it's always been encouraged to be civil, always be constructive, always respect each other. It's in our rules. Whether people follow it or not, they have for the most part, which I find kind of nice, because you go on Twitter and people are trolling one another all the time, and the fact that we're still able to maintain that civility, despite the fact that we have very differing opinions, all of us, the commenters as well as the writers. It's quite amazing.
I love that about it. Like I said, it becomes a fandom safe space where you can go and you're not, you can go there and bask in the love of the show and the shared appreciation for the show without being afraid that someone's going to pop your balloon or set you off and ruin the experience. So that's one of the other things I really love, is not only the depth of material that's on the site and the variety of material, but that sense that people are going to be on good behavior, relatively speaking, as much as anybody ever is on the internet. But honestly, I think remarkably so.
Well, and I credit that. Yeah, in the I'd say in the middle seasons, I was constantly moderating and telling people simmer down and all that. But it's kind of remarkable how these later seasons things have just calmed down, and people are very respectful of the rules. I hardly get involved anymore in the discussions. So.
But you do get vibrant discussion. I may not read it all, but sometimes I do. Sometimes one of the reviews will say something, go, oh, I wonder how people took this. So I will, nip out there and look once in a while. And you'll have hundreds of comments. And I'm going,
yeah.
This is so cool. This is, because I'm sure as a blogger, sometimes it feels like you're shouting into the void and you don't know if there's anybody out there. Boy, you have people out there, because those comments are thick and fast, and that's terrific. That's very vibrant.
No, and the things they come up with, it's like we've got 100 reviewers on the site.
That's true. I have seen people come back with interesting counterpoints, or, well, did you look at it this way? And then often you get interaction with the writer of the initial piece going, well, now you're bringing up a good thing. And now, and then the discussion goes off from there, which is just, again, fantastic. It's just such a wonderful resource. What do you think was a tipping point for the show's popularity in the early days? Because as you said, it kind of struggled there at the beginning. Nobody knew it was there. The network wasn't that popular. And then all of a sudden, boom, and 15 years.
Season 4. Season 4 was the definite tipping point, and we're talking the very first episode of season 4.
Which, for those folks who may not remember every episode title and every season, this is the one where Dean crawls out of the grave and comes back from hell.
Yes, and it's Castiel's first episode, basically. It was a game changer. They came right out of the gate. Honestly, after the writer's strike, the network was in trouble, and no show felt that they were going to be around much longer. So Kripke and Gamble and Edlin, they all got together, and Jeremy Carver too, who was heavily involved, got together and just said, let's just come out like gangbusters and give them an extraordinary season. And the highest rated episode was that first one in season 4, Lazarus Rising, highest rated on the CW anyway. Their first year in the WB, they did much higher. But, this is a show that got 2.5 to 3 million people, and Lazarus Rising got 4. They jumped 1 million viewers in one episode. So for a tiny network.
Yeah.
As soon as that happened, that cemented their season 5. The CW was elated. And but that was the year too that mainstream media started coming in and covering the show too. Maureen Ryan, who was a critic for the Chicago Tribune at the time, began to cover it. She was a huge, wildly popular TV critic. And she was a big fangirl. I got to know her personally, and she's an amazing person. But EW would cover it a little, just more and more popularity that they just never had before. And that was all coming off of the writer's strike, where people were just starved for entertainment. So,
well, and there are wonderful in-jokes in the French Mistake episode where Dean is asking, why would anybody watch Our Lives? And Sam says, well, according to the reviewers, not many people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's, but that's the wild and crazy mind of Ben Edlund, who is my favorite writer. Well, he and Jeremy Carver. And just the immense creativity. I mean, Eric Kripke got very, very lucky. He brought in some brilliant people. I mean, Ben Edlund was brilliant. Sarah Gamble really found her own in this show. This was her first big job. And, I was fortunate that Sarah Gamble was the first one I got to interview, the first writer. And she gave us interviews every year up until about her last season, season 7. It's a little turbulent. I don't think she was given interviews that year. So, but and then Jeremy Carver, who I've gotten to know very well, just all these minds that came in with these wild ideas, and Kripke's like, yeah, let's do it.
I mean, they've just done episodes that nobody else would dare do, like the Groundhog Day episode Mystery Spot, and like the French Mistake, where Jared and Jensen end up playing Sam and Dean end up playing Jared and Jensen playing Sam and Dean, and Baby, where the whole thing is shot from the interior of the Impala.
Oh, now Baby, you see, that was the second generation of writers. That was Robbie Thompson, and he was a gem too. It's a shame he wasn't around for Kripke, because I think Kripke would have loved him.
So was there, you talked about meeting the cast at some of the very early conventions. Was there a kind of a tipping point with the cast as well, where they sort of either realized this was going to be around to stay, or got in the groove of figuring out the fandom and got comfortable?
Yeah, I think it really didn't happen till about season 6, to be perfectly honest. I mean, when they did the conventions, when the conventions first started out, Jensen didn't do them. It was something that Jared did on occasion. As they started doing more and more conventions, Jared was always on board, but trying to get Jensen to come was a little different. I think by season 6, I'll have to look at my logs there, but by season 6, that's where the conventions really started to get their own, become their own thing. They were getting larger, they were getting more people to come in. I was there for Richard Spate's first con too in Chicago, and I believe that was season 5. And he hit it off with the crowd the second he got out there. And he fed off that energy, and he's been a staple at the con since, you know. But season 6, you know, I remember going to Comic-Con and just before season 6 and doing all the interviews with everyone, and it was kind of new territory because they knew they had this 5-year plan. They played it out. Kripke was going to move on, and then they're like, oh, well, the show's not going anywhere. So it was sort of like, oh, okay, well, then what can we do? I think Ben Edlund said it was the Bible part 2. It was the Bible, the sequel. They just knew that they could do anything. They could relax more. They could be more engaged with things, and yeah, the attitude changed. And when it did, yeah, the everyone. I can't remember. Misha adopted Twitter first, but I was at the con in Nashville where then Jared announced he was joining Twitter, and that wasn't till at least season 5 or 6. And then I was at the one even a year later when Jensen announced, and that wasn't at least till season 7, I don't think, maybe even 8. But it was just one of those things that, yeah, they started feeling more comfortable doing that sort of thing, and they're like, well, it doesn't look like we're going anywhere, so we're not going to worry about getting canceled and stuff like that. So and I'm sorry, and then yeah, just it kind of took off from there.
Well, I was going to say, for those of us who came in, you know, late, we had the benefit of being able to look things up on Super Wiki, and I know for me personally, I'd be watching it, and then if it got too anxiety producing, like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to die and not come back, I could look it up on Super Wiki and go, oh yes, okay, this is how it's going to work, and they'll fight for a couple of episodes, but then it'll be okay. And then I could watch those episodes angst-free because I knew it was all going to work out in the end. But if you were watching it in real time as it unfolded, you didn't have that benefit. So for those of us who came to the party late, what was it like when we didn't know that Winchesters came back from the dead on a bungee cord? You know.
Well, I guess we didn't know, but we kind of did know, because, you know, like
what about the rest of the season if somebody's dead?
You know, it was one of those things. Yeah, when we're going back to season 6, right? And yeah, you know, it's season 5, so they've killed off Sam, right? Supposedly, and yet there's Jared in the press room going, "Oh yeah, I'm dead," you know, or whatever. Yeah, I'm not coming back. It's like, yeah, we knew that. I think that's the thing, you know, when you kill off a lead actor, it's it's not going to stick. So
unless they had a much heralded departure, if their name's still in the credits, it's a pretty good bet that they're coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so I don't know. I can take the Winchester deaths with a grain of salt. You know, it's just. I know what you want to see is the process. That's what wrecks you is the emotional process you have to go through to live through that moment, even though you know they're going to come out of it in the end. You know, the emotional process is grueling, and so as someone watching that, yeah, you know, I remember watching Swan Song, and I was wrecked for months. I mean, months. I was just. It was so riveting, and it was the perfect conclusion to everything that had been building, and so emotionally it just killed you from an emotional standpoint, and so that's how it felt, you know. At the time, you would just be wrecked after that, and then you would go to your fandom and let's console one another, let's write fan fiction to help ourselves, that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, it's that's what the fandom's there for. That's your support network to get you through it.
Well, Alice, thank you so much for joining me tonight. The time has gone so fast, and it's been so much fun. And for anybody watching us, if you haven't been out to the WinchesterFamilyBusiness.com, you've got to go out and explore the site. If you are even a casual fan of the show, you're going to find something that you love. So, Alice, thank you so much for being with me. Folks, we will have more supernatural love, legend, and lore here on the Supernatural Fandom Track at Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin, and I'll see you soon.